Welcome to the Northwest Tank Line Super Bowl show, coming to you from Radio Row at the Convention Center in Phoenix. Our 22nd year at the game. 22 is a pretty good run, but Curt Menefee stopping by. He's the host of Fox NFL Sunday, the #1 pregame show for 29 years running. He's here going to talk a little bit about XTech equipment, the #1 shoulder pad in football. Curt, you know, we always talk about, first off, welcome.
Well, thank you. Good to be with you guys again.
But we always,
it's become a Super Bowl tradition, it feels like.
But, you know, Chris and I always talk about this one degree of separation that there is in this world of football. We're walking to the convention center this morning. We just bump into Max Strong. And, of course, you know, I said, hey, we got to run. We're actually interviewing Curt Menefee. And he's like, you know, you guys have a history together, working together in the Seahawk preseason games.
Max, good people, Seahawk legend there. Now over in Pullman. I think he went over with his wife. She's a professor.
Yes.
So he went over there, and so he's out of Seattle, so I don't get to see him as much as I used to. But good people.
Very good people.
It's really good that you got a chance to run into him and thank him for the message he said.
There you go. How are you enjoying your week?
Is this still the same week? That's the question. So I feel like I've been here about a month already. I got in on Monday. Today is Wednesday, and the game's still 4 days away. So that's the one thing. But you know what? There's nowhere else you'd rather be. It's like you sit there and you go, it's a long week, and it is a long week. But if you weren't here, you want to be here.
You know, it's interesting how things change. I mean, I remember going to the media sessions for the broadcast crews when they first started. And you could sit at a table, there'd be like 8 or 9 people, and eventually kind of meander your way to the next seat to whoever was on the table. You could do a little 2 or 3 minute interview with a Jimmy Johnson or a Howie Long. You guys like it's like the media night for the players. They got you on podiums and 6 deep. You guys were like rock stars.
I don't know
at that event.
About that part of it, but it is. You know, I think just everything about the National Football League has grown exponentially over the last decade in particular. You know, yes, over the last 29 years since Fox has been doing it, but really this last 10 years has been an explosion in the media coverage from a digital standpoint, from a radio standpoint, from a television standpoint. I mean, you name it, because the NFL is king. I mean, everybody wants a piece of it. Everybody wants to be a part of it. And when you look at it, at least in the States for sure, the numbers are, there's nothing else close to it.
Before Burnsy grills you on the X's and O's, you're here with the good folks at XTech, our good friend Bob Broderick representing them. Tell us about these shoulder pads, because they look pretty wicked.
Well, that's what, not only they look good, they help you play good, even though it's not proper grammar.
That's good.
Okay, it works.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Good.
No, the thing is, like, you look at these things, back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm talking 10, 15 years ago, not that long ago, shoulder pads, when you saw football players, they were huge. Like, you couldn't see their necks.
I'll show you a
touched
picture.
the bottom of their helmet. Right, it wasn't that long ago.
Oh, yeah.
But now these things are so lightweight because of the technology that XTech put into their pads. And you can go to xtechpads.com or follow them on Instagram at xtechpads. But it allows players to perform better because they have much lighter pads on right now and much more flexible pads, and you look at how effective they are in keeping guys healthy, and that's the biggest thing is the technology. And you could hit this thing with a hammer or a baseball bat, and you would, you'd feel the impact of it, but you wouldn't feel any pain. You wouldn't feel the blow. And the top players in the NFL are wearing them right now. It's the #1 pad in the league. Justin Jefferson, who led the league in receiving, Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing, Nick Bosa, who led the league in sacks. All those guys wear XTech pads because they realize that, one, it keeps them healthy, allows them to stay on the field and put up those kinds of numbers. But two, it's something that doesn't inhibit them the way those old shoulder pads used to.
You know, it cracks me up because you see those old highlight reels from the 80s. I remember, like, Kenny Easley with the shoulder pads.
I was talking with Daryl Johnston the other day, the former Cowboy fullback. You look at a picture from him, and it's like you can barely see him. You see the big shoulder pads at number 48, and that's it, you know, the rest of it. But this thing, it's really changed a lot of people's lives because it does keep them healthy, and it does keep them on the field. And it's not just the NFL players. I mean, Ohio State, USC, Auburn, high schools, and their programs all around that get these into the hands and onto the shoulders of young players, including they've got donations set up. You can go online. You can figure out a way to try and maybe get your program involved in it as well.
Curt Menefee is our guest, the host of Fox NFL Sunday. Now, here's the tough part. Burnsy starts grilling. You think Howie and Bradshaw and those guys are tough. Wait till this guy starts talking NFL and the X's and O's.
I want to talk X's and O's, but you almost left me in a situation where I can talk pads because I was a gear guy when I played, and I love talking about it. We'll do that off here. You talked about how the game has the game has grown.
it's exploded.
The media has changed a little bit. How do you think that has changed the experience for the teams? And like
the Super Bowl experience?
Yeah, the Super Bowl experience. One of the things I was talking about, it's hard to come to a game like this and win it if you haven't been there before.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I think you certainly need veteran leadership. Let's say it that way. And so you may not have personally needed to be here, but you certainly need guys on your team who have been here, who can kind of take
in your
you
organization.
through, and in the organization, because it has grown so much. You know, one of the big things, it used to be, you just had to worry about tickets for your family and you got to do this. Well, what we call dead week, because there's no game, it's so important. That's when you've got to get all that stuff lined up, because when you get here, you're, as a player, you've got practice, and they try to keep it low key as much as they can, but you still have obligations with the media, and you've got media day on Monday night. You got a media performance on Wednesday. You got to sit down with whichever network is doing it, the game, to just do those pictures where you go, hey, I'm so and so, and I went to this school. Like that takes time. You've got to try your family. They show up. They want to have dinner with you, but all these guys are also. So many of them are mini corporations. Yeah. So they've got some business deal that they've got to do, right, while they're on a big platform. But that means they get dragged from place to place as well. So there's so much that goes on here now that didn't go on before, where you could just show up and play a football game.
And you touched on something that I wanted to ask you about. From your guys' perspective, how much more access do you have to them? How much more, and really what I'm getting at is the demand on them from guys like you that are the big broadcaster, the big outlet.
Well, I think the one thing that we have that no one else has is the network that does the game that year, and it's us this year. Next year it'll be CBS, and we'll be on the outside. But the network that does the game, you get an opportunity to go to the team practices. Yeah. And by doing that, you can have some one-on-one time and talk to guys and talk to players and coaches. We also have, I used an example of earlier, where you do the lineups where all the guys have to show up and go, hey, this is so. We did that on Monday night. A couple of us, myself and Jimmy Johnson, we went over there and we hung out, and we got a chance to talk to players and do. So you get access that other people don't. But it's only on the years that you're doing the game.
And Curt, one of the things too, like we talk about it from a broadcaster's perspective and covering the game, but man, just doing it as a broadcaster, it's a career highlight. I mean, I know Chris did color for a Grey Cup game in Canada on radio. I was lucky enough to work sidelines 5 or 6 times and do pre-games. But man, kind of looking back at it now, I wish I would have savored the moment a little bit more. Are you doing that? I mean, when you come to these games and you realize, hey, because you're only doing them every 3-4 years.
Every 3 years, and I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, if we weren't here, we would want to be here. Yeah. So you get here and you go, it's a long week and it's a grind. And it's like,
and I've done it before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But first of all, like, nobody at home cares because they want to be here. But seriously, if you're in the radio business, you're in the television business, and you're sitting at home and you're watching the people that are there, as you say, it's a crowning achievement in your career. If you can do it, you would say, wow, I would love to do that. So you're doing something that you wish you could do. Your wishes come true. Take advantage of it. Try to savor the moment. Try to enjoy it. And I try to do that, certainly within reason, knowing that I still got work to do.
And the other thing, too, about this event, and John Riggins, I think, said it the best many years ago, this is like a convention for people in the media, right? It's like our yearly get-together. Really, and it's great to see you. And, like we bumped into Max Strong, who I haven't seen in a long time. And, the ability to connect people. And I think that's the other thing about this event that keeps drawing us back is all those people that we work with and know and have the time to enjoy their company.
It's like a bad high school reunion.
It is, a bit of a slighly twisted high school reunion. And one of the cool things too, especially this year, is I've run into so many people who've said who haven't been here like me. I haven't been to the last 2.
Okay, right?
And so many people weren't here. I think
it makes you appreciate it more by missing it a little bit.
Yeah.
And exactly, you put it really well. If you weren't here, and I bitch about it, and I got another real job.
Yeah.
And, I come down here, and I'm here because I want to be here. And if I wasn't here, I would be wishing I was here.
100%.
I got to tell you, before we get to the X's and O's and get your thoughts on the game, I remember a few years ago, we were in Dallas, and I think it was the Green Bay-Pittsburgh Super Bowl, and we had the little headsets on, walking through the thing, and we had the live feed of the Fox broadcast. And Joe was talking to the crew right before the crew game. He said, hey, let's go make some memories, right? And I remember that. And it kind of brings me to the point, yesterday at the media conference, somebody asked you about your favorite Super Bowl memories, and you brought up the story of Howie Long on the sidelines.
Yeah.
New England and Atlanta. Can you relay that story for our listeners? Because I thought it was an amazing story.
Well, that was the Super Bowl in Houston, and everybody obviously remembers it, the comeback from 28 to 3 down. and New England won the Super Bowl that year, first and only overtime Super Bowl, until Sunday, hopefully. But, so that was a great game, and that's what people remember. But for me, we're standing down on the sideline in the overtime, and obviously the game could end on one play, so you have no idea when it's going to end. And I was standing beside Howie Long, and his son Chris Long was playing for the New England Patriots. And Chris had played a long time with the St. Louis Rams and, one-win teams, two-win teams, and finally got to New England, got to a Super Bowl. And I was watching Howie as the overtime was going on. I was watching him actually more than I was watching the game. And it was like he was in a different place, like he was taken away. And you could see, one, he was concerned about his son, but two, when the game ended, the pride that a father had. And you could just see the joy that he had and how much it meant to him that his son won. And it wasn't like, hey, we're Super Bowl champs. It was like, in some ways, he felt a burden had been taken off his son, and all those bad years were worth it. And for me, as someone who, I knew Chris when he was in high school, and who, knows Howie and his wife Diane, that family, you feel a sense of pride in it. You feel like, wow, I'm so happy for him being happy in this moment. And that, to me, is the one thing that's my favorite Super Bowl memory, and it's got nothing to do with the actual game itself.
That's pretty great. I think a lot of times people forget, whether it's the athletes or guys like you and Howie, and these are real people that have real lives and real families, and it's cool, it's his son playing. Well, remember, it's his son playing. Like, can you imagine? Yeah. You're watching your son, and especially with the understanding that Howie has of the game,
right?
How hard the NFL is, how hard it is to just I can tell you how hard it is to just get a chance to step on the field. I never actually stepped on an NFL field. How much, like, how great that would feel watching your son do that.
But here's the thing, though, that I think, when you look at the situation, it hit home for me. I was lucky enough to be at the 2013 Stanley Cup Finals. Bruins lose to the Blackhawks in Boston. And I knew a player on the team. People know Milan Lucic, good family friend of ours, and known him since he was born. Part of that Bruin team that lost. And as these guys were coming up the escalator to the family room, the person that was greeting him, like, it was always a parent. It wasn't wasn't the wife. It wasn't the girlfriend. It was the mom coming up and giving him a hug, or it was the dad giving him a hug. And I think it goes back to what Howie and every parent, they've been there for the entire journey.
Yes.
They've been there since
juniors or Little League or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Since you've been born, and they've been, saw the first time you went to a practice. They've been through that journey the entire way, and for them, it's such an emotional connection.
And it works both ways. I mean, for the kid, your parents have been there from day one.
Yeah.
So when you reach the pinnacle, or it's the most disappointing loss you've ever had, you want a hug from dad or mom. Yeah. And it's not a slight against your spouse or whatever, but that's the bond. That's that connection.
All right, we got a couple of minutes. Burnsy, get into the X's and O's.
I can't believe
real quick, we're going to wrap up.
All this time without even talking about it. So you told us you get to go to practice. You got access. So 2nd and 3, what are the Chiefs going to run?
Well, we'll find out, because Andy Reid is a genius. He's a guy that comes up with everybody. This is why he's so good after the bye week, whether it's the regular season or in the postseason. He's successful because he's like a mad scientist. He comes up with things that other people haven't thought about. And he's got so many weapons on this team right now. Obviously, Mahomes and his health are a big story. But Mahomes and Kelsey are the two stars. But you look at, who would have guessed Isaiah Pacheco, a kid drafted in the 7th round, as a rookie would have the impact he's had. Jerick McKinnon in the second half of the season, coming out of the backfield, catching passes, has been unbelievable. Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy who moved on from Pittsburgh you thought might not be what we thought he was. Yeah. Or you get Kadarius Toney, same thing with the Giants. He's been able to take those guys and use them as pieces in this puzzle that nobody's been able to solve so far. And I think that he's the, you can make an argument, I think, if Andy wins this second Super Bowl, because we judge everybody on championships, you win one, people say, yeah, but you only won one. If he wins a second, it takes him into a different category. And I think you can make the argument he is one of the greatest coaches in the history of the National Football League, because if you go back, he went to 4 straight conference championship games in the NFC in the early 2000s. 20 years later, he's going to 5 straight in the AFC. Not anybody else can say that. And he's been able to evolve and change with the game the way it has evolved and changed.
First of all, great job. You saved me 5 questions.
Okay.
By asking you. I asked you one I didn't expect you to answer. That is a professional right there. I totally agree with you. I think Andy Reid is one of the best coaches that's ever
I agree
ever
already,
been in the league.
But,
absolutely.
But he'll be acknowledged that way.
And if they are able to win this one, that it may be his crowning achievement. Because I look at it, I don't see how Kansas City wins. Then you start thinking about all the things that you just brought up, and Andy Reid, and that's how they find a way to win.
It should be a good game.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, where's this game decided? What decides it?
I think the running game of Philadelphia is going to be the difference maker. I think Philly wins a close game because I think it's going to be hard for Kansas City to penetrate that offensive line, I think, and put any pressure on Hurts, and I think also to kind of stop the running game. Look, it's basically Chris Jones and Frank Clark. And outside of that, there's not a whole lot they can get. And this is the best offensive line in football.
Yep.
I think they can run when they want to run. They can pass block when they want to pass block. And I think that's where it'll be determined. But it'll be a close one.
Curt, great stuff. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Always great to see you
Enjoy the
guys.
rest of the day.
Take care.